This tree here is a super fascinating tree, which I've been trying to do a video on, but it's really difficult because there's a lot to talk about and I don't understand a lot of it. So this is Galbulimima baccata. There's also Galbulimima belgraveana. And a lot of botanical people think that there's two different species. Some people think there's 4 different species. Some people think it's all just one species. I guess the main distinction comes from this one here is on the in the Sunshine Coast region of southeast Queensland, and then there's not another observation until we get to North Queensland, and then it's also found in Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Indonesia. So this is quite a distinct population down here, separated by 1,000 kilometres or so. And I guess through genetic analysis it's like, oh, are they 2 different species? But I like to just say they're just one species, belgraveana, and that's because then it's monophyletic, which is way more cool to talk about. So that means that of the family, this is in Hymintrandaceae, it's the only genus and the only species. So that's the super old branch of the tree of life with just one little leaf on the end, which I find fascinating. It's related to the magnolias, which are a prehistoric plant. They're between true flowering plants and pines, so gymnosperms and angiosperms. And it doesn't have true flowers. It's got like these highly modified sort of flowers. They don't have petals or sepals, but they're a beautiful flower and they produce a strong aroma, which I'm yet to see or smell. But I think they're kind of like pseudostamens or something like that. They look like a flower, but they're functionally completely different. So yeah, a super old lineage from the time of the dinosaurs. And yeah, very distinct lineage. And this one's got a huge range of potential pharmacological impacts. So it's been discovered that there's over 40 unique alkaloids within this plant. These are the fruit of it, called northern pigeon berry, and the fruit doves and the pigeons love to eat these, as well as the cassowaries up north. And there's accounts of people eating fruit doves and pigeons that have eaten this a lot, and then they feel the effects of the alkaloids. So there's over 40 different unique alkaloids, and it's usually from the inner bark where it's harvested, and also the leaves up the top. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any leaves. And the list of alkaloids is very confusing. I'm very bad with all the names, but easily there's 26 of them that are just called GB for Galbulimima, and there's GB1 all through to 26. GB18, they have isolated that acts upon the kappa opioid receptor, and it produces dysphoria and a dissociative state when taken, which doesn't sound great. And then there's a lot of different alkaloids that are related to the family. So there's himbicene is the most commonly researched and understood one, and that acts on the muscarinic acetylcholine receptor, which regulates smooth muscle, and it has a lot to do with your heart rate. So that himbicene reduces your heart rate, or maybe increases it. But then there's himbadrine, which does the opposite. And then there's all sorts of ones like himgravine and himbaracine, and there's just too much for me to wrap my brain around. So yeah, I was feeling a bit like a imbecile trying to remember them all. But it's really interesting. Some of them act on your blood, thinning your blood. Some of them, increase heart rate. Some of them decrease heart rate. And interestingly, from the specimens people have analysed from the bark of this, from Papua New Guinea, the alkaloidal content was very different between individuals. Even individuals that are found in the same area could have completely different ratios of the alkaloids. So it's a very hard one to be like, oh, that's the alkaloid that's doing this. And also the alkaloids are very structurally complex. I don't pretend to know any biochemistry stuff, but it was about the 3D structure of them being very hard to mimic, which there has been some recent breakthroughs in mimicking those. So yeah, there's some applications for Alzheimer's, bradycardia, sort of changing your heart rate. But interestingly, ethnobotanically, the people in New Guinea and also Northern Australia, but I couldn't find any accounts of it, have used this as a medicinal plant. Some of the wackier ones was to treat head lice, which I don't understand how that works. But there's also like cases of people would chew the bark and they'd spit it into a container that had ash in it, and then they'd ingest that, and that would help with, it's like an antispasmodic, so it helps with digestive issues and cramping. And there's been alkaloids isolated that have been shown to have antispasmodic impacts. But also ceremonially and ritually it's used quite a lot, and that's because in conjunction with a whole heap of other plants that they use, which makes it hard to tease out what this actual plant's doing, they produce like a dreamlike state and a disassociative state. But of the eyewitness accounts of it, it's like it starts with tremors and then sudden violence, and then it's a dreamlike state with euphoria and then a deep sleep. So the first part sounds pretty hectic and terrible. And there's like cultures in Papua New Guinea that use it as a ritual for initiating men into their highest point of eldership, I guess, of the clan. And I'm sure as we learn more and more about it, there's going to be a lot more uses. It's been linked to anti-preening behavior, so I guess that's on the opioid receptor side of things. And that's usually made out of the inner bark mixed with the leaves and made with a tea. And then there's a Galbulimima plant. It's an aroid that they also chew the leaf of in conjunction with this. And then of the account, it was like, and then they had a dose of nicotine, and then they had magic mushrooms. So it's really hard to know what this plant's actually doing. And that gets to one of the core issues with this plant and chemistry and pharmacology. Is there's a thing called polypharmacology, which is one plant or one thing acting on different parts of our system. And then there's polypharmacy, where it's one system getting acted upon by lots of different inputs. And this one has both of those things going on. So it needs a huge amount more research. Super interesting botanically. The leaves are beautiful rusty brown underneath and a metallic glossy green on top, I'm told, but I'm yet to see it. And apparently these seeds grow quite well, so I'll be trying to plant them into a few more of our rainforesty sites we work on. But yeah, that's Galbulimima, whatever species you want to call it, and signing off.